Ladies and gentlemen, fellas, welcome into the Week 11 Top Stacks video where we're going to be talking about, as of this point, middle of the week, before we have the finalized news, what some of the top stacks are looking like right now to help you start to build your lineups with some GPPs. Now, finalized stacks and overall stacks interest will be known when it comes on Sunday. I do that Closing Thoughts podcast, but for right now, we're ready to rock and roll. I got two honorable mentions for you, so we'll start there. And by the way, if you're not yet, there it is, very voluptuous, just gently caress that subscribe button. I appreciate that. But two honorable mentions. The first one is going to be, they're both kind of single stack oriented, but first one is going to be Aaron Rodgers with Devontae Adams, run back Justin Jefferson, or Dalvin Cook. Now, that's not what this video is. I just give you that right there. That's just for the honorable mentions. We get them out of the way quickly. You can build them in the optimizer. We're about to show you the optimizer momentarily on how to do that for the rest of these stacks. The second one is, Russell Wilson's coming off of the worst game of his career, yada, yada, yada. I mean, he looked fine throwing the deep ball. He forced the deep ball, right, at times. He got a little bit, that's kind of what he does, overzealous. The accuracy in the intermediate range wasn't there. He was checking down to Gerald Everett a lot, but I like going right back to him here. I mean, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, we're seeing all of the targets at wide receiver, as you would expect. There's run back options on the opposite side primarily, and especially if you see Kyler Murray going this one, you feel better about those. So stacking up Seattle is kind of an honorable mention. It's not a top 5 priority. Same with Green Bay, because I think that Green Bay game could be really slow pace if both teams lean towards the run, which I would expect. But those are at least options that will not be as highly owned. So now let's get into some of these top stacks, in really no ranking order, but they are kind of tiered off. And the first one we can talk about is more so for the value that you get out of this player. So this is a couple of weeks ago, people wanted to play Jordan Love. I mean, not a good player, right? Not a good environment for him, let alone, right? And people wanted to play him. Didn't really make much sense to me. And now this week you have a veteran who's been an MVP and Cam Newton coming in for Carolina, and I actually think these Carolina stacks are in play depending on the contest that you're playing in, right? And for these Carolina stacks, it's going to be pretty interesting. You have a 25 team implied total here. The game environment stinks. 46.5. The opposite side of this one is Washington, where Heineke looked fine last week, sure, but who did he propel forward? Nobody really. It was Antonio Gibson getting in the end zone twice. RSJ got hurt in that game. McLaurin didn't really do too much except for convert a couple of third and fourth downs. So what you're going to get here is these situations where I'm not really looking to full-on game stack this one. I'm mainly looking to take advantage of the value that you get in Cam Newton for a guy projecting out for me for like 20 fantasy points. So here's the big energy optimizer. You can use this optimizer if you'd like to. We're putting it together and continuously updating it, industry low price, and you can check it out down below. But if you put Cam Newton into the optimizer right here and you want to build your group out for Carolina, you can say I want to get at exactly one. I just want to single stack Cam Newton with players from his team. If you were to put at most 2, you can go at most 2 guys stacked with him from this group, right? So it can give you 0, 1, or 2. We can just go with, let's just say, at most 2. And really the only guys that I want to consider getting here are DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson to an extent, but really just Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, and Robbie Anderson. And if you really wanted to button it down to what is my favorite stack for Cam Newton, it's just with DJ Moore, a guy who continuously gets open, and he's just been a victim of poor quarterback play with over 30% of his targets not being catchable this year. So really you could just put exactly one here. McCaffrey is maybe like the only running back I want to stack with his quarterback. There's a couple of other ones depending on the week and the price points. McCaffrey with Cam Newton I think is completely fine. But you put that in there and you get your group, and then you say, okay, well, Cam Newton now on the opposite side of this one, do I want to run anything back? In my actual favorite way to stack Carolina this week would be to not run it back. You have McLaurin still expensive. You don't know what's going on with the tight ends with Logan Thomas still murky. RSJ now nursing this hip. I don't trust Antonio Gibson, who did not see any usage in the passing game again. He just had a couple of goal line touchdowns and really not even that efficient on the ground. So I would be running it back with at most 1, right? You can put it back with at most 1 in McLaurin. If Ricky Seals-Jones was to play, you can put him in there. If it was to be Logan Thomas this week, who last week they said is really nowhere close to coming back, so that's a concern, but that's kind of the way that I would play this. You can go Terry McLaurin. You can go one Ricky Seals-Jones, right? If you wanted to go Antonio Gibson, sure, I'm not going to go there, but it's also a tough matchup against this Carolina secondary now. Stephon Gilmore playing well. I'm going to be interested to seeing what's the timeline on J.C. Horn if he's going to be coming back this year, but that's how I would do it. I don't even think you have to run it back. Probably my favorite way to stack this up would just be to go Cam Newton, get his cheap price point, get a very nice and high upside in DJ Moore in there, who's a top 5 value and a top 5 wide receiver play this week, in my opinion, point per dollar wise, and then run it back with nobody. Single stack that thing. If you want to get McCaffrey in there anyways, go for it. So usually I'm not a proponent to target stacks that I don't think have a ton of upside, but just how cheap that stack is, and really because of Cam Newton, makes you and allows you to do a lot of stuff. That's probably something that I lean more towards in a smaller field contest where correlation isn't as needed, as opposed to a large field tournament where you might have Mr. Patrick Mahomes go for 35 points, Josh Allen can go for 40 points, Lamar can go for 40 points, and then if Cam gets you 22, it's a really big difference there in terms of those larger field tournaments. So that's probably one for a smaller field contest. That is where where I would lean. And now in terms of overall props, we talked about this already, and we don't have to spend too much time in the values video, but I've already taken the over 56.5 receiving yards on Mr. DJ Moore. I have him in the 70s right now. I have him 20 yards over this number. I think it's a great spot for DJ Moore right now, not only in the matchup against a bottom 5 secondary in the NFL right now, rankings-wise, if he gets away enough from Kyle Fuller, which I think he will, move into the slot some, getting more accurate quarterback is the hope, and it's hard to be as inaccurate as both PJ Walker, Phillip Walker, whatever you want to call him from the XFL, and Sam Darnold were. Like, I mean, bottom of the barrel. It's going to be an upgrade here. We take the over there. If you want to take that over, that is on Prize Picks. You just take the over under on props. You can use the code SAL for a free bets, free, F-R-E-E, up to $100. If you go to prizepicks.com and use that code SAL for the free bet. So that's our number 5, and that's like very specific to smaller fields, single entries, less than 1,000 people, ideally less than that. Those are the best contests you can play in, and otherwise you're going to be probably, most of you, hopefully not, but probably a good amount of you pissing your money away in the Millie Maker each week. Don't know why you're doing that, but hey, it's your money. You do what you got to do there. The number 4 stack, it's really interesting now because like Lamar is not going to be in this video. Spoiler alert, Lamar's not going to be in this video because I like Lamar in his own right, but I might as well just save $3,000, and he's not going to project out as well Cam Newton if you wanted to run naked lineups and just save $3,000, right, for the extra 4 points in a fantasy difference. In terms of an $8,000 Lamar Jackson, I'd rather go to some other guys up there that we're going to talk about in this video. So it's interesting that now some of these stacks from like number 5 and 4 aren't like as elite, you can say. It's kind of top heavy this week with these top 3 stacks that are standing out. But the Bengals are number 4 for me. They're coming off the bye. They have a 26 team implied total, and this game environment in general is really nice. Like Vegas, if you want to add them in as an honorable mention with Green Bay, go for it, right? And with Seattle, go for it. I mean, they have a 24 team implied total, the Raiders, but the Bengals on the opposite side, the favorites with a 26 team implied total. And the nice thing is you get affordable stacks. Not only Joe Burrow affordable, not only is Jamar Chase affordable as the alpha $7,200, but T. Higgins $5,400, just pieces everything together. Punt tight end with CJ Uzomah if you want to. It looks like a very solid game environment because of what you're getting on the run backs for Vegas this week with a 24 team implied total. You know the options you have from Vegas. Waller's probably overpriced. Renfro is getting to the point where if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's probably overpriced. And then Edwards is kind of your GPP flyer. So the run backs aren't secure by any means, but there's options there. Josh Jacobs if you want to go with a run back of a running back. And that is surely a mouthful, a run back of a running back. I'm not going to be putting Joe Mixon in these stacks with a Joe Burrow, but let's just try and build out what a group would look like here. So if you wanted to stack up Joe Burrow, since he's not that mobile and purposely not that mobile after his injury, I would say that I want at most 2, right? Or you can just go with at least 1 in this lineup so you can get up to 2, whatever you want to go there. We're going to try and double stack this thing. You could say I want to go exactly 2 if you know you want to double stack. If it's a larger field tournament, you know he's not as mobile. The clear double stack is T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, right? But in that group, I'm also going to have Uzomah, and in that group, even though Tyler Boyd's not used as much, we'll still put him in there in the group. So when you say I want to have exactly in the Big Energy Optimizer down below on Patreon, when you say that exactly 2, you're going to get exactly 2. You're going to get a double stack here. But now you want to be able to have, since it is a good game environment, I do want to run this back. So anytime Joe Burrow is in a lineup, and you can set your rules to make sure you have the proper stacks on the rules page in this optimizer. Anytime there you want to say, yeah, you know, let's run it back with exactly 1. If you just want to run it back with 1, exactly 1 of a Darren Waller, of a Josh Jacobs. These are probably my primary options. You're not getting a ton of overall targets from Bryan Edwards, but you saw the touchdown last week in the big playability. Still, obviously, no Henry Ruggs there. And Hunter Renfrow, obviously, the price point is getting up there, but he's still going to project out nicely. So now you have this situation where you know you have Joe Burrow. In this exact case we just used as an example, with double stacks, running it back on the opposite side with a player from the opposite side, a cheaper Bryan Edwards perhaps, who has some big play upside in GPPs. You can still fit in a Darren Waller whose price point's coming down, maybe not enough for how he's producing, but his price point's coming down. Higgins, Joe Burrow, their fair price points allow it to be a somewhat affordable stack when you get that $7,000 Jamar Chase in there. So like I said, no Mixon in those stacks. I do think Jacobs in the run back is completely fine. If I had to say my favorite stack for this game, it would be Burrow with Higgins and Chase, run it back with a Darren Waller. That's where I think the highest upside, the highest security is as well, no matter what the field size is. If you're playing in a lot larger field tournaments, I'd substitute probably Waller and try and punt that tight end with something else that can spike for you, since there's a lot of good tight ends this week, and then fit in there Bryan Edwards instead, who has big play upside, but he's cheaper. He saves you a couple $1,000s. If you're looking at props for this game, I actually, on the opposite side of this one, I like Derek Carr. We said he's an honorable mention. I don't like him a ton, though. I actually took the under on Underdog. Underdog is a similar site to Prize Picks. Prize Picks has more offerings, I would say, especially for fantasy points, but you should always shop your lines, right? Shop your lines for the best line that you're going to find. As of this video right now, the better line is on for Derek Carr's under 284.5 passing yards. I have Carr in the 270s. I have him about 10 yards below this. I like that number on the under there. I think that he could play fine, but he's without Henry Ruggs, a big play receiver. Renfro's doing a lot of stuff on the underneath. Waller is struggling to get separation downfield this year. And Bryan Edwards has basically been hit and miss. So like for the running backs out of the backfield aren't really there. So for this to really work out, it has to be a shootout. It has to be a fast-paced game when it can easily just turn to the Bengals, who want to run the ball, right? They want to run the ball. They're doing that a little bit less now, but they want to run the ball. And also Vegas, who definitely wants to run the ball. They're set up to pass, but they want to run the ball, at least under the John Gruden mold. They're not fully out of that yet. Since Josh Jacobs is getting healthier, you might actually see that. So I'll take the under there from Derek Carr. In a way, it kind of hedges if this game shoots out in a crazy way. Well, your stacks are going off. You might lose the Carr bet for 20, 50, 100 bucks, whatever it is, but your stacks are going off, and that's where the big upside is in those GPP prize pools. So that's where I would go. You can use the code SAL on either site, Prize Picks or Underdog here, to secure this one, and you get the free bet up to $100 on either site. So now we actually start to get into the guys that are going to start to get interesting for us, right? We start to get into these stacks that look really good. And again, this is in no ranking order out of these top three. I'm not really secure where I even want to go yet. It's probably going to take up until the last hour or two before lock to know where I want to go in my single entries, but it probably comes down to one of these three games, or one of these three teams, two games. There you go. So we can talk first about the Bills. The Bills have a 28.5 team implied total. They were fine last week. Josh Allen goes for over 360 total yards, couple of tuds. Cole Beasley only runs like 9 routes. It would be nice to have that information before the game, that he was dealing with a pretty serious rib injury. Only running 9 routes in the game isn't great by any means, especially when I played a good amount of Cole Beasley, 30% last week. But the game environment here looks decent. Indy, you know they want to run the ball. They have a 21.5 team implied total. They might slow the pace of this game down. You know Buffalo's not going to run the ball. Top 5 passing over expectation in the NFL right now. So you know where you're going with these Buffalo stacks in general, right? I mean, a group for Buffalo is pretty clear and obvious for me in terms of who's going in that Buffalo group. Josh Allen, of course, is the quarterback. You're going to be putting Stephon Diggs in there. You're going to be putting, as long as Cole Beasley is healthy, which it gets a little bit sketchier now, especially if you're playing these guys in your main lineups, you're going to put Emmanuel Sanders in there. And Dawson Knox, who only had like 1 catch on his birthday last week, has a broken hand. We'll see what the update is as that goes forward. This is where I'd go. I'm probably not going to go Gabriel Davis. He's having a couple of receptions, not running a lot of routes though. And for these Josh Allen stacks, I mean, I think you can single stack or double stack them. So I'll put at least 1 here so you get single stacks, but then that'll also allow double stacks to get into the lineup. Won't give you 3, and then you can run it back on the opposite side of this game, which it's not the best environment to run it back. I'll be completely honest with you, because you know what the Colts want to do. They want to run the ball, but this matchup for the Colts against Buffalo isn't going to be great. Now, Buffalo is running a lot more 2 high safeties this year, which is where the league is trending. You've probably heard it plenty of times already on broadcasts or on other podcasts, but that is what you are getting here, which allows, you know, running is going to be able to happen if this game can stay close. It's not the best game environment for Jonathan Taylor, but we're going to put him in those groups. Michael Pittman, it's not the best matchup by any means, but we'll put him in those groups. We can put T.Y. Hilton in those groups as a cheap option, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like, if you wanted to add Zach Pascal to this, you could. If you wanted to add the punt tight ends to this, you could. And Mo Ali Cox, Naeem Himes, you could add to this, right? These groups. But that's kind of where I'm at. You can put it back with at least one. Exactly one would just get you, obviously, just one of these players to come back in a run back. But if you add that group, and now you have your Buffalo stacks, with at least one or two you can get to, and now you start to know where you want to go in that type of a build. It's a decent game environment. Like 21.5 points for the Underdog is not a terrible. It's obviously not a great team total. It's not the 24 that you're going to be seeing in the Vegas game on the opposite side of the Bengals. It's not the 26 that you're about to see in this Dallas game. It's not anywhere near that, or the 27 in this Dallas game. It's not anywhere near that on the runbacks, but it's still pretty solid, and they have some key players that are fairly priced. So my favorite stack for this game is going to be Allen and Diggs, and then you can guess, and you can go in your opinion. I want to just have Diggs singles, but if you want to put Dawson Knox in there, I think that's completely fine. Will actually probably make you pretty unique. Run it back on the opposite side with either Pittman or Hilton, whichever receiver you can fit, depending on what the rest of your salary is looking like. I'd go receiver over Taylor just because of the price point of Taylor. Price point of Josh Allen and Diggs really kind of determines everything else you're doing in your lineup at that point. Not sure we have as much value, especially at running back this week, to make that work out for you aside from David Montgomery. For a prop for this game, I ended up taking, this is a really low number on Prize Picks, over 215.5 passing yards for Wentz. I'm shocked it's that low. I know they really want to run the ball, but they're 7.5 point underdogs in this one. It is surely a tough matchup, but Carson Wentz this year is averaging way over that number. He's had other difficult matchups this year. He's produced well in those matchups, right? So 215.5 passing yards. I have Carson Wentz in the low 240s. I got him for like 241. So I smashed the over on that one at this point. You can compare it, or you can take it with the DJ Moore. I actually took the two of those together. I took Carson Wentz and DJ Moore. I actually took DJ Moore in another video and the over on AJ Dillon's rushing yards. At that point, it was like 65.5. But we take the over 215.5 on Carson Wentz, combine it with the 56.5 on DJ Moore. You put those together, use the code SAL, and you get a free bet up to 100. So why not use it? Linked down below. So now the final two are in the same game, and you should expect it. It is Chiefs and Dallas week. You can go into this game and try and fade this game. You can say that Dallas's defense is better. When they go too high, they can make the Chiefs struggle again, and then Dallas goes run heavy in a good matchup where they can get it going on the ground. And similar to earlier this year with the Chargers and Dallas, they had so much yards of offense but just could not find the end zone, whether it was penalties, whether it was turnovers, whether it was fourth down stops, right? All that stuff from earlier in the year, and a lot of people had high ownership to that game. That was actually the week that I ended up getting lucky for sure, late swapping and getting Derrick Henry in a late swap for the game where he goes against Seattle for like fucking 50 points. But this is the game environment. Now, I think that there's a really good case to be made that if the Bills ownership does not come in where it should be, like if the Bills and Josh Allen are like 8% owned, Mahomes is like 14 and Dak is like 12%, the Bills are just as good of a stack, in my opinion. I would say, though, that the Bills look like a really good stack, easily can be the number one stack of the week. So that's where leverage will come in. I'll say that between the Cowboys and the Chiefs right now, it is definitely tough because the Cowboys stand out as the on-paper better team. You just don't know where the ball's going, right? It's been going to CeeDee Lamb lately. Now he's a little bit banged up. Dalton Schultz doesn't do anything last week, kind of drops a touchdown, but only 2 targets, right? I don't really want to use Zeke in these stacks. Gallup returns this week. What does that do to everybody else? And Amari has been struggling. So on paper, their price points allow it to be easier to stack this team up, but just overall, it's not the type of team, especially by how much they actually want to throw the ball in a lot of these games, that you think is going to pass a lot. Whereas I know the Chiefs are going to pass a lot. The Chiefs rank number 1 in passing plays per game. I know they're going to pass a lot, and I basically know where most of that usage is going, Tyreek Hill primarily, and Travis Kelce still. So I think that the Chiefs right now stand out as the stack in this game that I would prefer. They have the higher team total. Earlier in the week, it was Dallas, but looking into it more, it's the Chiefs. They have a higher team total at 29 for their team total. The game total is 56 for both these teams in this game, so they're slight favorites. And when you start to break it down a little bit, you're going to have Tyreek Hill looking fantastic. We've talked about Tyreek Hill in a couple of videos already this week. The man's averaging 12 targets per game over his last 7 games, 7 touchdowns in his last 7 games. He's dominating, 40 targets more than anybody, all the other receivers, over 20 targets more than Kelce at this point over the last 7 games. He is just in sync, whether it's teams like the Vegas Raiders that don't want to play cover 2 and he can just go right by them, or it's teams like everybody else playing cover 2 against them and he's picking up these short 7-8 yard receptions, short 5-yard touchdowns in the red zone. Now, some interesting things to point out about the Chiefs stacks and the potential for the Chiefs stacks as we start to build out their group is that you put Patrick Mahomes in there, right? Is that you saw McCole Hardman actually run the 4th most routes last week. He stopped from being the wide receiver 2 to the wide receiver 4. So now it's really murky there. It's Byron Pringle, it's DeMarcus Robinson, it's Josh Gordon, it's McCole Hardman kind of all splitting this wide receiver 2 role, and really wide receiver 3 behind Kelce, if you consider him a pass-catching receiver, which you basically should, and then clearly Tyreek Hill. So what I want to do here in these Mahomes stacks is I think you can single stack it. I'll say at least one. I think you can definitely double stack it. I really just want to play a lot of Tyreek Hill. Like in these matchups, I'm not concerned by any means about Trevon Diggs and coverage against Tyreek Hill. I'm not concerned for anybody trying to cover Tyreek Hill. I'm concerned about that player trying to cover them, but not concerned about Tyreek Hill and his potential chances of being halted. But your obvious options are the obvious options. You don't have to get cute. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. After that, Byron Pringle right now seems to be operating as the next best guy out there. We'll see if Hardman was just like a 1-week thing. See if it sparks him, maybe some sort of disciplinary for playing poorly. But after that, I'm not really interested in DeMarcus Robinson. You can put him in there as a flyer. Not really interested in Josh Gordon. You can put him in there as a flyer. I'm just not interested in these guys. The big question is, do you want to put in Darrell Williams? I think that's up to you. Or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, whichever one comes back. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back, though, I think it'll be too murky for either of them to really want to get to them. But Darrell Williams, 9 catches over 100 yards and a touchdown last week. They're going to check down a lot more. So it really is up to you if you want to include Darrell Williams in your Patrick Mahomes stacks. I do think it takes away from the overall ceiling most of the time from Mahomes, who's going to be targeting more so downfield. But if these 2 high safeties come back, you're going to get more checkdowns, and that's where you're going to see Darrell Williams become more of a play. So I think that that's where a group you can go with. You can decide on the Darrell Williams. Let me know in the comments, do you want to put Darrell Williams in those Mahomes stacks? And then on the run backs, you can go at most 2, so you can get 1 or 2 guys on your run backs, and you just put in all the guys who look good. I think that Michael Gallup's going to look good as a cheap guy who's going to make a lot of these stacks work. He was limited last week to 20 to 25 snaps. He ran 21 routes, and he actually saw 5 targets. He should see some more work this week. I think Ezekiel Elliott is a fair guy if you can actually afford him. CeeDee Lamb. So I would kind of rank it at this point. Lamb, Gallup, and then after that, if you want to throw Amari, if you want to throw Dalton Schultz, but Lamb and Gallup make it really easy to work out for ceiling. If you want to go with Cooper and Gallup, it makes it really easy for the amount of money that you're saving in there. But these are the viable plays. The tight end Dalton Schultz will definitely be lower owned. Similar Dalton Schultz in this stack, in this run back, same for Dallas stacks, as kind of Dawson Knox, right? These tight ends that start with D, similar price range. I think that they're both going to go overlooked after not really doing anything last week. But if you look at what they've done, basically every other week they've been active before that, it's looked really, really good. So I think that that's the run back option. I think that that's the way you play these Chiefs stacks. I am completely fine just single stacking it, even if you're playing in large field or small field, and just going Mahomes and Tyreek, run it back with a Gallup and a CeeDee Lamb, run it back with just an Amari, run it back with just a Zeke, right? Or a Gallup in all of those plus somebody else, because Gallup is like the cheat code to make lineups work. We know that a lot of his targets will be downfield. He'll be on the outside. Even if he transitions into the slot, because they've been running CeeDee Lamb on the outside a lot, we like that. They're going to rotate a lot around. So that's kind of where I'm leaning. I think that the Chiefs look better by a little bit. Obviously, their offense overall has struggled versus these 2 highs, so that's where the risk comes in. But I think they they look a little bit better right now. My favorite stack would be Mahomes and Tyreek, running it back with Lamb and or a Zeke, Gallup, and Amari. The prop that I like the most is on Underdog. The prop, I will mention, though, it has not come out yet from when I'm looking at this on Prize Picks as I'm recording this, and usually Prize Picks sets their over-unders, their yardage a little lower, so the overs generally look a little bit better there. I have Mahomes over 300.5 yards. I took this number right now. You can pair it up on Underdog with the under on Derek Carr, 284.5. So that's the under on, or the over on Underdog on Mahomes prop of 300.5. Something tells me that this number might be like 280 or 298, 295 over on Prize Picks. So just track that. If it is lower, obviously I like it there as well. You could use that code SAL. There's a nice wager for you now on Prize Picks. You have two props. You have to combine two together. Now you have two over on Underdog with that Derek Carr under and now this Mahomes over. Go take them. Code SAL gets you the free bet up to 100. And then the last one is just Dallas on the opposite side of this one. And you know what to do based on what we just talked about here in terms of how I like it. You can just go into the optimizer. You just have Dak Prescott, right? He has a nice 27 team implied total as a slight underdog. Historically, if you're having a team total like that with a good passing offense and a good quarterback and you're an underdog, which means you're going to throw more than, on average, you're going to throw more than your season average. You start getting Dak to throw 35 to 40 times in this game. Yeah, that's when it starts to look good. Coming off of a game last week that was a complete blowout, dude still throws for 300 yards and a couple of tuds. He looks completely in the zone right now. He looks in control of everything that he's doing out there. Definitely looks like the MVP so far this season. Dak Prescott in the far majority of these games, minus the Denver one at this point. So yes, I think it looks really good. I think that you obviously have a strong run back with a team on the other side with a 29 team implied total in the Chiefs. The main run back options that I'm looking at are Tyreek Hill and Darrell Williams if there is no Kelsey to an extent, but Darrell Williams would be second if there is no Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But Tyreek is the clear run back, an example of a stack that looks good. Dak Prescott not being that mobile this year, double stacks look good, especially with a high team total. So Dak Prescott plus Lamb plus Gallup, run it back with Tyreek Hill. Dak Prescott plus Amari plus Gallup, even though it doesn't look as good or as upside as Lamb has been this year, been clearly Dak's favorite receiver, it at least saves you some money. Run it back with Tyreek. But I'm probably going to Dak and Lamb, fill in the other guy that you want there, whether it's Schultz, Amari, or Gallup. Gallup clearly cheaper. That's why I said it first. Makes it work, especially when you have Tyreek being expensive on the other side. So I think that's my favorite Dallas stack. And those look like the clear top three stacks of the week. Dallas, KC, and then the Bills in no ranking order right now for me. I don't really know where I want to go with that. The rest of them kind of all just hodgepodge together. The Bengals, the Panthers, if you really want to get a low price and maybe even low owned probably stack. The Packers, Baltimore to an extent, right? Even Tennessee versus Houston, I would probably only single stack that with A.J. Brown. I'm not trying to get cute with anybody else out there. Marcus Johnson's of the world, Josh Reynolds if they re-signed him. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at with these top stacks. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have not already, there's a like button. There's a like button that just pops up. If you want to use the optimizer shown in this video, the big energy optimizer, that's right here. A bunch of stuff you can do in here, not just for NFL, but NBA, PGA, MMA. When MLB's back in season, we'll have that as well. You can set up your groups. You can set up your position stack rules. You can set up your overall exposure rules, right? You come in here, you do all this stuff. The big energy optimizer right now is included right now in your priority packages, which for the most part, most of the time you have to pay like an extra $100 membership for an optimizer. If you're a Patreon member, if you're a priority or a Hall of Fame, it's just included at this point. So again, I'm just a single person here, just a single person in terms of my business, and I don't have to pay any employees. I like it. It's low overhead, so I can let the success that we're having on this channel from all of you in this podcast, I can distribute those profits through to you by keeping the prices basically at industry lows right now. And it's fine. I get to undercut all the head honchos because I ain't got to dish out money to all these other employees out there. It's very good that they have employees, more people doing what they love to do in this business. That's just not the route that I took. And because of that, you, the beautiful people out there, you, the Patreon community of 1,000+ members, get the benefit. If you want to join, get that optimizer, get the Discord, get all the tools and perks, come on in, linked down below. I'll see you when I see you, gang, and I'll see you in the next one. Final Thoughts Friday, That One Dude Saturday, and the live stream on Sunday. Peace out, gang.